always keep your word. If you make a bad deal, you eat it. If you make a good deal, great. Be humble about it, but keep your word. And secondly, have a passion for what you're doing. The one simple thing I think is passion and perseverance, but it's really ultimately people skills. How do you relate to other people? I think how people deal with other people is the whole name of the game. I teach law school for 22 years at the University of Virginia. I'm still doing it now. And I tell them, first day of class, 2 words. If you never see me again, 2 words I want you to remember. Build trust, which creates relationships. And the whole world is based on trust and personal relationships. And if you can accomplish that, you're going to be very successful in any endeavor. You don't have to be a sports agent, sports lawyer. You could be a chemist. You could be a doctor. You could be anything you want to be. So it's all about people skills in my mind. One day on a Saturday morning, I get a phone call from Coach Smith. He said, would you be interested in representing Michael Jordan? And I said, yeah, sure, of course. And he said, well, I'm here in my office with his mother and Michael. He was a junior that year, just finishing his junior year. They had won the national championship the year before. And so he thought Michael should come out. So they put Michael on the phone. It was sort of unusual, Saturday morning around 10 o'clock. And I said, hi, Michael, hi, how are you? And he said, well, I'm fine, but, I really love Carolina. I really am not sure I want to leave. Coach Smith says I should go now because the market will be stronger. What do you think? And I said, well, I'll go check the market for you and try to give Coach Smith the information. But he said, well, all right, well, I'm going to follow his advice. Dean Smith was God at Carolina. Those players loved him. I've never seen a man that did more for his players, worked harder with them. And the only comparable example today would be Mike Krzyzewski at Duke, who is a sensational human being and a great recruiter like Dean was. Anyway, to make a long story short, Michael said, well, I'd like to come up and visit you. If you don't mind, I'm going to bring my father, James, with me. So I said, no, I love it. So they came to Washington and stayed at my home here in Potomac, Maryland for 2 nights. And we then signed Michael, never dreaming he would necessarily become what he has become to the sport of NBA basketball. Really, the story that people always ask about is, how did the name Air Jordan develop? And it's a very simple, true story. The 2 guys from Nike flew into Washington to open a Nike store in Georgetown. That was on a Friday, and they asked if we could meet Saturday morning. So Saturday morning, we met in my office at ProServe, which was 10 minutes from their new store, about 10 a.m. in the morning. And I was there on a Saturday morning with David Falk, who was then my assistant. And we started negotiating. And their side wanted a Nike shoe with Michael Jordan, and our side wanted Michael Jordan name shoe in every way on all the products that anything they wanted to use his name on, but mainly shoes, he'd get a 5% royalty. And suddenly in the conversation, it had been going for about an hour, and we knew Rob and Peter very well. And one of them, I believe Peter Moore, said, well, what about Air Jordan? And it just popped out. And all 4 of us were kind of stunned. I said, wait a minute, God, that sounds perfectly. You get what you want, we get what we want. It was a perfect, phenomenal thing. And so I said, let's go, let's do it. So that's how the actual brand name Air Jordan developed with Nike. As it turned out, it became a phenomenal branding name. Never be the smartest guy in the room. When you're negotiating a deal, if you're negotiating with somebody who you don't think is as knowledgeable or as experienced as you are, and that happens sometimes, don't take advantage of that in the sense of being obnoxious or arrogant. It gets you nowhere. And, when you're really negotiating, at the end of the day, it's all about compromise. I make deals. I don't blow deals. I don't always try to get the very most. When you negotiate, you don't, and this took me a long time in the business you don't have to win every point. Win what you think is really important to your client, and and give in on what they say is very important to their client. An example, I always believe there's sort of a moment of truth And I'm talking about a serious negotiation where you're talking about millions of dollars. I'm not talking about a $20,000 endorsement deal for a car locally or something. But in a big deal, there's always a moment of truth. And you say to the team, I have to have a 4-year no-cut guaranteed contract, or we're just not going to make a deal. Or the club says to you, our maximum money under the cap, we can only pay him X. $10 million a year. We can't pay him 15. We can't pay him 12. The maximum we can afford for 4 years is 10 million. I'm just making up hypothetical 4 years both ways. Well, at that moment of truth, if he believes me or I believe him, we're going to make a deal. If one side really doesn't believe the other is telling the truth or means his word, you're probably not going to make it. You're certainly not going to make that deal. And then things go down from there. So I always believe keeping your word is a form of that. And I think it's stood me in good stead over the years because the reputation gets around. It's a very small industry, sports, that is very lucrative and wealthy. And there's a lot of money and it grows and grows and grows because of television every day. But the people in it, there may be 800 football agents today, but 20 of them are the ones you want to really talk with. And the great ones are going to be 4 or 5. You know, it's just that simple. Well, I feel most grateful for my wife, Carol, and my twin daughters, Alexander and Christina, because, you know, at the end of the day, what are we here for? What do you leave behind and what do you create? And, you know, when you're gone, your legacy really is your family and your children. And so I feel that I've been blessed by, you know, a phenomenal wife and 2 phenomenal children. That's my greatest accomplishment. I don't mean that sincerely. I'd like my legacy to be that we really contributed something to the sport business, but we tried to do it in an honest, decent way. And I think how you treat people and how you keep your word is really important.